Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Eric Bass from Eric Bass Presents and the band Shinedown, and I'm here hanging out with my boy Rob on Front Row Live.
Eric, what's up, man? I am so excited to be talking to you, not just because it's you, but also because this is your solo debut, something that's been going on for some time behind the scenes. And I'm excited. The release is like literally around the corner. This record is a masterpiece, dude. Like, you took us into this whole new world that, we never thought we could expect. And it's incredible. Talk to me a little bit about I Had a Name and like the process that kickstarted it all.
First of all, thank you. I appreciate it. And it's good to see you. We haven't seen each other in a while, so this is nice. Yeah, man. So I had a name. The record came out of a graphic novel story that I've been working on for quite some time. That will come out later this year. But that whole process started in 2018. We were touring in Europe. I was in Milan, Italy. I was sitting in a hotel room. I'd gotten done with a workout, and this I had this voice that doesn't belong to me. And if anyone has ever experienced that, they'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't, I might sound crazy, but this it just said, this voice just said you might want to write this down. And I had no sort of preconceived notion of what the story would be or anything like that. I just started writing, and basically came up with what would end up being the prequel to the story that I'm actually telling. But you have to start somewhere, right? I tooled away on this story for the next 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, and then out of that, I started thinking about writing a record to go along with it, and I was advanced enough in the story at that point that I kind of knew the world I was living in and what I was dealing with, and I just started messing around with pieces of music. Actually, I started messing around with pieces of music that I wasn't sure if they were going to be Shinedown songs or they were going to be something else. But we're on tour. I just have the Pro Tools out there. I just started messing around with some stuff, with some melodies and some song ideas, and then I went to Brent and I was like, "Hey, man, are you ready to start writing another Shinedown record?" And he said, "Absolutely not." So I said, "Well, I got these things, man, that I'm messing with. They're a little different anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and pursue this other thing." And so I did. And basically, what I ended up doing is I just took snapshots from the story, snapshots from the graphic novel story, and you know, just kind of told stories lyrically that I thought were interesting in the greater story I was telling. So, kind of the same thing I would do with a Shinedown record, right? Or just any other songwriting where you're looking through life, you're just looking at the world going on around you, and you're picking moments and events that you think are great to write songs about. So, delved into it that way, man. And the record is chronological to the story, but it's not telling the whole story. It's just kind of pulling these little snapshots out. So it's been super rewarding, man, and interesting. It's been an interesting process for sure as well.
I don't know how you were able to start even the writing process like during that era. That was, if I recall, that's attention era, and
Yeah.
that was a big record release and tour as well. So how are you able to balance being on this tour, presenting this album with Shinedown, but then also being with yourself, trying to create this new world for yourself?
Yeah, I do that. I actually doing that, creating a story and creating a record while on tour actually kept me sane. I mean, one thing that a lot of people don't realize about touring is that when you stop partying, like when you stop doing drugs and you stop drinking all the time, because you do those things to cope with being out there, to be honest with you. That's why so many artists, I think, fall into that sort of trap, is because a lot of people don't realize that, yeah, I mean, the tour is exciting and the show is exciting, but your daily life is pretty boring. And you have 2 hours a night where you have a purpose, 2 hours a day really where you have a purpose, and the rest of the time is like I don't know what to do with myself. And so honestly, delving into big projects tends to help me curb some of that and feel about as human as I can possibly feel while on the move all the time. But yeah, man, I just set up Pro Tools in dressing rooms every day, and would honestly, it was hard to pull myself out of the project and to go on stage. It was kind of the reverse. It was like I get so I think it's part of my neurodivergence and stuff, man. I get very hyper focused on something and like very into it, and time just goes away. And somebody would come knock on the door like, "Hey, man, we got to be on stage in 30 minutes," and I have to like pull myself away from it and oh shit, I got to go be the other guy now for a second. So, um, but yeah, it actually was hugely helpful for me, and I've continued to kind of work on other things on tour like that. Again, man, I'm still working on the graphic novel story. It's very involved, and so I worked on that some over the Planet Zero tour as well. Even though I finished this record, I finished mixing this record a couple of days before Brent and I started writing what would become Planet Zero. So it's been done for quite some time, but it's been interesting also to revisit it, after all that time's passed. So
I was actually with Brent last year, and we were talking about Planet Zero, but also he was just like, just to like kind of give me a heads up, like he was just so excited about what you were working on, and then that got me excited because the last time the three of us sat down and talked, like just what you were talking about, like what's going through your mind and your creative process, it just like blew my mind. So I can only imagine, like at the time, I could only imagine what this like Eric solo project sound or album would be like. And
yeah,
it's cool that your bandmates are also, very supportive about this whole process and excited about it as well. Um,
yeah.
how how did that kind of help you be able to focus more on this record, knowing that you got their blessing throughout it all?
Well, I mean, that's just kind of the band we are. I mean, we don't. I mean, we're in a very long-term marriage with each other. So, and I can't describe to you how the similarities and parallels between marriage and being in a band is being a successful band. It's the same thing as being in a successful marriage. There's push and pull. There's give and take. There's you piss me off today and I love you tomorrow. It's like that's just what it is. But yeah, we all care about each other. I mean, I don't mean this to sound weird, but we all care about each other very deeply, and I care about what the other three guys have going on and things that they're interested in and interested in working on, and likewise they do the same with me. And I actually wasn't even sure if I was going to release the record that I had a name record. It just kind of sat for so long, and I was like, oh man, maybe it's just because I made it for myself. I made it for me. I didn't make it for anybody. The audience was me at the end of the day. I wasn't thinking about an audience, and I really wasn't quite sure what to do with it. And then the other three guys in the band, along with my wife, were like, we're gonna beat your ass if you don't put this record out. So not only are they okay with me doing it, they encouraged me to do it, which honestly, man, like I can't think of a better band, artistic situation to be in with individuals than the one that I'm in Shinedown. I mean, we would make a really boring reality show just because everything's kind of okay most of the time. Everybody's fine, and I just hung up with Brent right before I got on with you, and we're just catching up, man. Like it wasn't all business. It was just, what are you up to? We have a genuine friendship like that. So it means the world to me to be in a band where I'm encouraged to explore my musical eccentricities, so to speak.
What was it like for you for this process now that this album is about to drop? And you obviously perform these songs. You did so in the music videos. So what was it like for you going from Eric Bass um, as the bass player for Shinedown
Just say it. Just
versus
say it.
now being like the front?
The out
You're
of
the front
focus
man
guy.
now.
How does it feel from going from the out of focus guy to being the front man?
No,
I
not at
know,
all.
man. I know.
But not at all. But it's like, dude, you like just watching those videos. It's like you've been a front man forever.
Yeah.
Like there was no, sometimes like when other members of a band start a project and they go, they become the front man, they don't feel comfortable. They don't look comfortable until they start to. But like it seemed like you've been fronting a band forever. So, what was that process like for you? Like, did it feel natural for you?
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it actually, interestingly enough, man, that video making process was, it's the first time I've directed. It's the first time I've edited, like I directed, edited, did any VFX, any of that stuff. I kind of just taught myself on the spot how to do these things. One thing that I was pleased about was that directing was I found it to be just the same job as record producing. So it was like rather than telling a drummer what to play or not telling them what to play, but trying to get a performance out of them, maybe try this, maybe do this, give me a little more of this, a little less of that. When it came time to talk to the people who were acting in the videos, it was like, oh, it's the same thing, man. I'm doing the same job. So that was great. But I was so hair on fire trying to get everything ready to go for these videos. I mean, I made all the props, like just everything, like so threw myself into it that I remember the moment that it was like, oh, I have to perform now. Like I hadn't even thought I had not thought about it one bit. I could visualize it, I could visualize what I wanted it to be, but I remember the moment that I was standing there with the microphone and it was just the camera and me and this video actually hasn't come out yet, but there's a video where it's just me with the microphone singing. And I remember going, I haven't even thought about this. I've never done this. Like I've never done this before. I've never sang to a camera with a microphone. I've never engaged an audience as a front man at all. And I just did it. I just went with it. I just was me and I just did what I felt like I should do. But the thing is, man, it's not that it was just that easy to do. It's that, you know, we often say this in Shinedown. We're not really in the rock and roll business as much as we're in the entertainment business, right? We're there to entertain. And I've been an entertainer and a performer for my whole life. And I think that when it came time to step into that role, it was just like, oh, just entertain. Just do what you do. When I go out on stage, it's not like even with Shinedown, it's not like I'm like standing there. I'm like moving around and I'm engaging people and I'm, uh, uh, being a performer. So I feel very fortunate though that it did come off as well as it came off because it could have gone the opposite direction, and then everything would be sunk. So, uh, but yeah, it was just maybe the fact that I didn't have time to think about it was helpful as well. I just jumped in. I was so worried about everything else and everybody else, everything around me that was going on that I hadn't even thought about my own performance at all. So that was probably a huge blessing too.
Was it difficult to have so many different hats this time around since you pretty much did the entire project yourself?
Yeah, for sure. The record making stuff wasn't that bad. The video stuff for sure. Like I definitely had too many hats on in the video making process and caused some some complications for myself that I had to go back and fix later because I was trying to do too many things. But in the record making process, um, honestly, the drums and vocals were the most difficult thing in the record making process because those are the two things that were the most foreign to me. Um, I say that I'm definitely quick to say that I performed the drums rather than played the drums because I don't want to insult drummers everywhere. I didn't sit down to a kit and play like traditional drums. Dude, well, I feel like I'm not apologizing for it, but it's like if I go, I played the drums, people have this idea that I sat down and my feet are going 90 miles a minute. And what I did is I put the drums on stands and I played with my hands. I played everything like this because I played in marching band, right? And so my hands work pretty well, my feet not so much. And so all this double bass stuff. But I wanted to pour myself. I wanted to physically play every instrument on the record. So, I spent a week and a half recording drums like this kick drum here, snare drum, back and forth like this, and then two toms here. And then went back and overdubbed cymbals, played cymbals separately. The kind of the Dave Grohl trick. He does that a lot. He'll record drums and then cymbals separately. It makes the drums sound really cool. Um, but that was really getting takes that were great and I felt good about. That was really difficult for sure. And then the vocal stuff, it's not that I don't sing every night of my life. I mean, I sing 85% of the Shinedown shows. I'm a backup singer though. And what people don't really think about, singers understand this, but what a lot of people don't understand is that it's not really about being able to sing. It's like a lot of people can sing and sing notes and sing the correct notes, but can you get the emotion across? Can you emote? Can you transfer from here out to everyone else? And I had to work at that a bit, because again, I'm just used to sitting back and just providing a foundation for Brent all night. And so It was a great learning experience though, man. I learned so much, and I can't wait to actually be able to try it again and be able to get a little better at those two things, uh, maybe when I do another record or something. But other than that, man, the guitar and keyboard stuff and bass stuff is just those are kind of like that's second nature to me, and the production stuff and all of that for sure is um, and yeah, it actually ended up being a lot of fun, but it didn't weigh me down too much.
As far as the sounds go on this record, you take us all over. Like I mentioned, you take us into this new world. There's cinematic sounds, there's rock sounds, there's just like there's a little bit of everything on this album. And I'm curious because your past experiences of producing and working with other artists and other projects, um, did that have any impact on it being easy for you to kind of give us a whole like escape of just different genres and different sounds on this record?
Honestly, that just came from my sensibilities, man. Like the things I love. I listen to a lot of different stuff. Of course I love rock and metal and like, that's the school I came from. I came up playing hardcore music too, So it's like it's that's definitely in my blood, but there's so many other things that I find that interest me musically and so many other records that I love that are outside of the scope of what Shinedown does or what people would think that I would be interested in. Um, Honestly, man, for me, I wanted to create a record that I thought was interesting and maybe not what people expected. And so a lot of this record came out of sitting down and maybe writing out a song on an acoustic guitar and having an idea of like how the song goes. But when it came time for the sonics and how it was going to be put together, there were quite a few times when I would kind of get the verse laid down and create a vibe for the verse. A song like Azalea is actually a perfect example of this. It's like laying down these loops and kind of laying down a beat more for the verses with these keyboards and synths and stuff for Azalea. For the verses, and then going, okay, what are we going to do about a chorus? How is that going to sound? And then dropping into this rock thing, and then you get to the bridge, and it drops into this whole piano thing, and it's like, really trying to put some thought into almost like more how a composer would do something rather than how a songwriter would do something, and just really trying to weave these interesting things together. Dead Inside, another song off of the record, is another one of those ones where it's like it goes to the chorus and it just kind of takes this left turn into something else. But I don't think it sounds foreign. I think it sounds like it just does it. Uh, and so that was a lot of fun, man, to just kind of explore that way. And then honestly, there were other songs that stayed a little more traditional and kind of stayed home. It was like a song like "Oh Good Children," just needed to be what it is. It's a more traditional, acoustic type of song. But that's why they're kind of all these different genre bending things in the record. It was just like I love the way that loops sound. I love a lot of hip hop stuff. I love a lot of country stuff. I love a lot of orchestral things. I love Broadway. I love metal, you know, and it was just like why don't I see if I can't, you know, kind of surplant, plant these things into this record and make it all try to work together.
As you mentioned children, I love the fact that you incorporated these like children choirs, or maybe it's just one child singing
Yeah.
and you're like dubbing it, but it was just so impactful in doing that. And a song like "We Can't Go Home" was one of
Yeah.
my favorites because it's like super heavy, and then you bring us this chorus, and it's just I don't know. It was just an experience. Like what just happened, and I
I
love the
appreciate
creative
that.
process of that. And I'm curious, like, what really inspired that for you? Like, did you have this choir kind of in mind for this album? Was this just like a natural process for you? Like, what was that like creative process like?
Yeah, so one of the plot points of the story is that there are these kids who live basically in a prison work camp, and they can't ever go home. They're there for their yeah, that's basically one of the rules is you can do all you can there are all these rules of things you can do and the rules of things you can't do. The only thing you can't ever do is go home. And so that's kind of like how they psychologically manipulate these kids. And so that being such a huge part of the story, these kids that are imprisoned and then are able to kind of turn and fight for their world and fight for their lives. Um, I always kind of heard these kids singing. certain parts of the song and kind of telling part of their story. And it actually started out again. I was trying to perform everything myself. I started out kind of manipulating my voice into some kids' voices, and it ended up sounding like South Park, man. Like I tried to make it work, and some of that got left in there in those kids' choirs. I'm still in there doing that, but like if you took away the kids, the actual kids that sang, it sounds like South Park music. Uh, but I basically got my nieces and nephews, man. We all got in the room and I tracked my nieces and nephews singing, uh, and it's crazy to think about it now, how much older they are now, because again, this record's been done for a minute, but I had like the perfect opportunity to have my family, and I just asked them all to come over to the studio, and I told them what to do and directed them, and um, I had some workarounds in there. There's some F-bombs in there that the kids sing, and I couldn't have them sing that, so I had to kind of have them sing one word and then another word and like glue them together at the end where they're actually singing the word that way. My sisters were a little like, I don't want them saying those words, and it's like, okay, I got you, but I'll figure out a way to do it. But that was a fun part of the process, man. It's very rewarding too to have my family come in and join me on some stuff too. That was nice.
The cadence for "We Can't Go Home," like something about that was very, I don't know, like it gave me like I'm at a carnival type of vibe, but it
Mm.
also gave me "It's a Small World," the Disneyland ride,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like vibes as well. Like there was something about it that was just so impactful. How did you come to that kind of cadence for
Mm.
just "We Can't Go Home"?
I just I don't remember how that happened, man. I was probably sitting down at the keyboard. I probably wrote that on a piano, that part. I probably sat down at the piano and just kind of came up with a melody and I'm very um rigorous on myself when it comes to melodies and stuff. Not that I always land on the greatest stuff or anything like that. I'm not sitting here saying I write great melodies all the time, but what I'm saying is I I want to research and find and figure out the best melodies that I can figure out. And sometimes the first thing that comes to your mind is great. Sometimes you got to go digging for it. And if I had to guess, I probably wrote that on piano. I know for a fact that the melody for New Graves, that which is another kids part where the kids sing, I wrote that whole melody on a piano. So without any vocals laid down, I laid down the music underneath it, and then I just found a good melody on a piano. Like rather than singing it, I was kind of writing it out note for note on a keyboard. I probably did the same thing on that as well, because that sounds like maybe that's not a natural melody that would come to my head first and foremost. It's probably one that I had to go digging for. But to be honest with you, man, I don't remember exactly how that came about.
Another song that I really loved was "The Churches of the Dead."
Mm.
Um, Another impactful song. This is actually one of those songs that if it was on, I mean, it's obviously on your project, but if it was on a Shinedown record, I would totally get it as well.
Mm.
There was something about this song that just felt familiar. It felt like nostalgic at the same time. Um, what was it about this song? What kickstarted this song as far as like the writing process,
Yeah.
and the vocals as well too. You sound amazing there.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the epilogue to the story, basically. So in the book, there's an epilogue that happens like where the story's kind of done, and then we revisit one scene at the end, and that scene is basically our main protagonist is this kid named Milk. He's as his nickname. He doesn't remember what his real name is. Thus, I had a name. That's where we get the name for the record. Um, but he's been through this hero's journey at this point. I can't give away too many story points, but he's been through this hero's journey at this point, and he's shown something very special, like about this world that we're living in. Azalea, who's one of our other characters, kind of shows him something and says, "Hey, let me," and I can basically tell you what it is. Is it says it in the song a good bit. They walk into this sort of bombed out monastery. It used to be this religious site, and it has no roof on it, but as you walk into it, they look up and the sky is red just inside of that monastery. And he, she's basically telling him that like the journey that he's just been on could be a turning point for them, for this world. And so he's kind of coming to terms with his demons in that song. Like the verses is sort of his conscience talking to himself, talking to him. And then, you kind of get toward the end of the song and there's this bridge breakdown, and that's him, you know, sort of saying a prayer about how, he wants to change the way he is. And um, here's the thing, man. At the end of the day, this record is probably the most autobiographical thing I've ever written, and I wrote it through characters. There's a lot of me in these songs, and I noticed that kind of after I'd made most of the record. I was listening back to a song called "Good Night, Good Night," actually. But while listening to that song, I realized, man, you really like wrote pretty much about your brain and what goes on inside your head and your life. And maybe it was easier for me to get some of these things out via characters. So if you get a song like Churches of the Dead, you know, that's really like at the end of the day, I know what it means in the story, but in the song itself, maybe some of the lyrics, have a lot to do with me and a lot to do with the fact that um, maybe I self-sabotage a lot, and I've got all these people that are trying to help me, and how disrespectful that can be if you're self-sabotaging while you have people that are actively trying to help you through things. And then you get to that prayer part of the song, and he's talking about all of his anger, and how he's got a lot left to learn. And that's me, man. I sit around, I'll do that. I'll say prayers to get rid of anger, and I'll say prayers to get rid of depression, and how can I get better? And so what you end up with on the I Had a Name record versus the I Had a Name book, the book is its own story, man. It's its own epic. It's its own thing, the graphic novel. But the record itself, when I started taking these stories like Churches of the Dead or Good Night, Good Night, or even Azalea, when I started telling these snapshots from this thing, the minute you start writing lyrics and you're trying to say more in 6 words than most people can say in 600. You're trying to take a lot of information and break it down to its simplest yet poetic form. Um, you end up you have no choice but to be honest, and you have no choice but to write from experience at that point, or it's not going to work. And which seems like something I should have already realized, and I do realize that, but I'm saying like with this record, I thought I was just writing these characters and then man, it's like it was almost embarrassing in a way where it's like, man, maybe I said too much. Like maybe I've like, uh I wasn't sure if I ever really wanted to talk about the fact that these songs were pretty autobiographical in the end, but there's really no other way for me to do it than to say that. So, it's interesting how these songs and Churches of the Dead in particular are telling, yeah, man, we're talking about this story, we're talking about this graphic novel, but if you get down to the lyrical aspect, I'm writing from such a personal place with what's being said that ultimately I hope that I end up with a record where, yes, it's a concept record. Yes, it's a story, but I want people to be able to listen to these songs and find themselves in there too, and be able to find lyrics and moments that have meaning to them. Um, and yeah, I like a song uh, uh, um, like Good Night, Good Night is about saying good, basically seeing, looking back and realizing you're not someone you once were. Like looking back to your childhood and going, okay, look, like this kid who was like blissfully ignorant. Like I left that kid back there somewhere, and I don't know when that shift happened to now when I'm like, I'm this serious person that I am now. And it's kind of saying goodnight and saying goodbye to that part of yourself. And so I think people can again, even though I'm telling a story, I think that they can listen to those lyrics and go, oh man, that feels really familiar to me. And that feels like something maybe I've gone through. So, um, yeah, that's a long explanation about Churches of the Dead, but that needs to be said about this record, the fact that it is, it ended up being wildly autobiographical unintentionally.
That song, once I heard it, it took me back to our last interview because of how we talked about, depression and mental health, specifically because of you've always been broken, but you've always got through it. And I
Hmm.
feel like that lyric just holds so much weight for you, but also for everyone around. It's something that it's worldwide. We all go through that. for you during this process? Like, what is it that keeps you going, keeps that fire fueling when you're going through these moments, whether it be like mental health or like just or depression? Like, how do you keep it going? How do you keep it collected and together?
Sometimes I don't, sometimes it doesn't stay collected. Sometimes it's not together. Sometimes I'm completely in pieces, falling apart, right? I think we all understand that as well. Um, Look, one thing that I think the way that I try to think about it is, um, uh, every day I try to think, if I'm having a moment like that, it's, hey man, it'll get better tomorrow. It'll get better. And then, well, what if it doesn't get better tomorrow? Then it'll get better the next day, you know? And kind of just always looking forward like that. I do try to be present though. I do try to be present even when I am in a moment like that. I think that's, some people will say don't wallow in it. Don't. No, I think sometimes, man, if you're feeling something deeply like that, if you're having an issue, if you're having depression, that you should just accept it in sort of a way. That's another way that I've kind of, you know, come to get through it a little bit. It's just like, okay, this is where I am right now. Doesn't mean I'm going to stay here. Doesn't mean this is how it's always going to be. And that lyric, you've always been broken, but you always got through it, you know. And I believe that. It's not easy sometimes, but and I have to practice what I preach with that because I'll have moments where I'm like, man, this feels like it's just going to be here forever, and it's like it won't be here forever, it won't last forever. And so it's just as cliche as it sounds, man, you get knocked down 7 times, get up 8, and that there is no other choice. You don't have another choice, that's it.
I mean, this record's heavy. It's a masterpiece. It's incredible. I'm excited that everyone else made you get this out. I'm excited that
Well, I
you didn't hold it
appreciate
for
that.
yourself. So I'm looking forward to everyone else getting to hear it once it drops February 28th. Hopefully there's some type of live performances with it, whether it's one-offs or maybe just some teases during the tour that you're about to jump on with Shinedown. But dude, congratulations with this masterpiece. Thank you so much for reuniting with me. And don't change. Continue to be you, because
Oh man, I
I
appreciate that.
mean,
Thank you.
this
I'm
is
honored, man.
insane.
I'm honored you'd have me on. I appreciate it, man. It's nice to see you again. I always enjoy our talks. So and I appreciate you loving the record.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to see you again, and hopefully in person. And yeah, take care of yourself, man.
All right, brother. Talk soon.